Hello, and welcome back to MakeCode Jam's Bits and Bytes. Today we're going to continue working in Microsoft's MakeCode Arcade platform. We're going to build a game called Get the Ghost. This activity is going to focus on having a game have a timer in there, so something resets every few seconds, and us trying to catch the item, in this case a ghost, in that time frame. We think this activity is best for students between 3rd and 7th grade. However, younger students are encouraged to try it out and get used to the platform and working with the blocks. They may need an adult's help to figure that out. Older students are also welcome to try it out and experiment with the code. This activity may be a little beginner for them, but I think they'd still have fun with it. Before we get into the coding, I'm assuming, since you found this video, you have probably found our website. If not, you can go to youthcodejam.org, and right now all of our videos for the current month are going to be under Jam at Home, Bits and Bytes Online. And you can see some stuff about the current series that we're working on. So right now we're doing our Code Adventure series, and we're working with Microsoft's MakeCode Arcade, as stated earlier. And we'll have information here about the activities difficulty levels, so we'll probably keep them in this beginner to intermediate range. That's the safest way to go with the variety of kids we get on the live sessions. And so by this, it will mean students between 3rd and 7th grade are going to have the best time with the activity, or it's going to be at their level. And then we'll also have device recommendations. We try to keep it so that our activities are available for students using regular desktop computers, laptops, Chromebooks, or even tablet devices. Some of our programs that we use are available on mobile phones or cell phones. However, the workspace is really small, and that can get really frustrating to students, and it's hard for them to switch back and forth between the drawers and the workspace and all the other things. So we really recommend that unless the student is comfortable working with a phone, that they work with a larger screen. And if you can't come to the live session, these instructional videos are posted at 5 p.m. after those live sessions, and we also will always have, so here's the one from Wednesday the 13th of August. So here's the video, and then underneath there's a link to the activity sheet. We will keep all the activities up for a month. So these are all the activities we've done so far in August, and we'll just keep adding on to those, and they'll get cleared off at the end of the month just to keep the page clean. At the very end, we have created some helpful guides for making this a successful experience for students and their families. We have a Zoom quick start guide. We have tips and tricks for using Zoom if you haven't used it before, the expected etiquette for when you're on the Zoom call, and we go over that with the kids. We're a little behind on our translations for the videos and the activity sheets for this club, so if you need it, you can change the closed captions on YouTube from English to Spanish. They're not perfect, and we apologize for that. It is something that is in development to get updated so that we are reaching our Spanish-speaking audience members. And then here's how to change the language in Scratch. So we won't be doing a lot of Scratch in the fall, but that is there in case you're using Scratch with something else. I think Scratch supports upwards of 80 languages, so it's really cool. And as you can see, you can click on this button and go to our YouTube channel, and you'll see all of our videos that we started posting back in, I believe this one was posted back in March. So when we first went on lockdown, we've had lessons since then. So there's, I don't know, upwards of, it looks like 37 right now. So there's a lot out there if you guys want to keep practicing or try other things. You just won't have the activity sheet for those. Alright, so that we've run through that spiel, we can go ahead and get started. So in a new tab or browser, you're going to type in arcade.makecode.com, and it's going to bring you to this home page. And if you have cookies enabled to save your history, you're going to have any of your games that you've worked on will appear here. If you don't, then they're not going to be saved. It really doesn't matter either way. It's just if you want to come back to it or not. So the first thing we're going to do is start a new project and give the project a name. I'm going to give it the name of the activity that we're doing. So get the ghost and create. So So while this loads, on the left here we have the game simulator. So this is where we'll be able to test out our game in the browser. These are the controls right here. This menu pops up, turning on the sound, turning it on and off or up, timers, all kinds of things here. This is the refresh button. You can see it's right here next to menu and down here underneath the game. So there's two places where you can refresh the game when we're coding and you want to test something out. And then obviously the A and B buttons. Underneath here, this button will alternate between stop and play. So right now it's playing even though nothing's happening. It's ready to start. It will play whatever I start putting in the on start block. Again, refresh. This lets you enter debugging mode. You can turn the sound on or off. I'm going to turn it off. You guys won't hear the sound while we're playing with this, but it will go off very loudly in my headphones if I don't. And then this will show you the keyboard shortcuts. So if you only have one player, here are the keyboard shortcuts instead of having to click on the simulator to play the game. And if you have two player, here are their keyboard shortcuts. And then we have, I think this one you can take a screenshot, and then this one you can launch it in full screen. So you can have the game all the way up here like that. And then to get out of it, you'll just push the minimize button there. On the bottom, you have your name where you can save it. So that's up to you if you want to change the name at some point. If you have a GitHub account, you can push the code there. This is your undo button, and this is redo. This is zoom out and zoom in. Then at the top, you can work in block mode or JavaScript. So JavaScript doesn't start with anything there like the block, but we're going to work in blocks. So the very first thing we're going to do is create our background. So you're going to go to the scene drawer with the pine tree next to it. And we're going to get this set background image to block. Then you're going to click on the gray square and we're going to draw our background image. So there's a really fast way to do this. Come over to the tools on the left part of the screen and click the paint bucket. And I'm going to stick with this green. So I made kind of like a starry night or a space background, however you want to look at it. So I selected the paint bucket tool and now I'm going to click the black square. So you can see that changes my color to black. And then I'm just going to come over here to our workspace and click twice, or click once, I guess. And it made that whole square black. And then to add those little stars that if you're looking at the activity sheet you can see, I'm just going to click back to pencil. So that's going to let me do a square at this size. I can make those squares smaller or bigger, but those are my cursor sizes. I'm going to stick with I think I'm going to move it up to the medium. And you can choose any colors you want for this. I'm going to stick with white, so I'm just click on the white square here. And then you can see my cursor kind of next to the square. It looks like a little cross there. I'm just going to hover over and tap when I want to make a white square. And I'm going to do this in a random pattern. So you guys can draw whatever you want. This is time to play with those drawing tools if you want. The drawing is not my favorite part, so that's why I did something simple. But if you guys want to do something more elaborate or really colorful, you are welcome to. You can just pause this video until you're ready to move on. When you are ready to move on, just click the green done button and resume the video. Okay. So you can see my game kind of grayed out for a second and then it came back and now my background's there. So we're good to go. So the first thing we're going to make is our ghost, which is going to be our the thing we're trying to catch, right? So we're going to go to the sprites drawer here and grab this under the create section. We're going to get this set my sprite to sprite of kind player block, and I just accidentally tapped on it, so it dropped it onto the workspace. So I'm going to drag that and put it under our set background block. And then just like the background, we're going to click that gray square next to sprite. And you can make your own ghost if you want in this editor. I'm just going to choose one that exists from the gallery. So if you missed that, I went up to where it says editor and clicked on gallery. And it just toggled over to a different screen. And we're going to look for a ghost that faces towards the left. And I'm double checking. Left facing, yes, left facing. I'm making sure that was in the activity sheet correctly. Sometimes we mix up our directions. So once I have the ghost I want, I'm going to click done. And then the last thing I'm going to do for this step is use this drop down where the word player is. It has this little drop down arrow next to it. And I'm going to change player to enemy, because this is not the sprite we want to control. This is the sprite we want to catch. And then I'm going to give our ghost a starting position. So go back to that sprites drawer with the paper airplane next to it and grab a set my sprite position to x0, y0 and attach that to our my sprite create block. You're going to change the 0 after the x to 150 and the 0 after the y to 20. So a quick note about how this screen, our game screen, works. 0, 0 is up here in the top left corner. So as we move to the left, or to the right, sorry, as we move to the right, our numbers get bigger. So left to right, left starts at 0 and right goes all the way to 160. And then top starts at 0 and the bottom value is 120. So you can do any coordinates between 0, 160 on x and 0 and 120 on y. So I have it just before the edge of the end of the x-axis and a little bit down from the top of the y. Alright, so that's all we're going to do with the ghost for right now. The next thing we're going to do is create our player sprite. So that is on step 5 if you're following along with the activity sheet. So go back to the sprites drawer and now get this create block again that says set my sprite to and drag and drop it underneath our last block. So we kind of skipped this for the first one, but I want to go back now. So this block says set my sprite to sprite of ghost of kind enemy. So this my sprite, this is called a variable name, and what this is it stores certain data, and we can change this data anytime. So we can change the ghost, we can change the kind of sprite it is, but it's storing this data, everything about creating our sprite in this variable. So whenever we want to use a block to change or move this sprite, we need to make sure that the variable name matches my sprite. And the same is going to be true for our player sprite. So it's going to be attached to the name my sprite too. So when we go to set its position, because we will, we're going to get another set my position block and set it to make sure it says set my sprite to, so that we're setting the player position and not resetting the enemy position, but we'll get to that in a second. For right now, just go and pick your player, and you can do anything you want for your player. It doesn't matter. I think I used, I don't remember, I think I used a rock or something, or an asteroid, just as something different. No reason whatsoever. And that's all you need to do on that step. So you can see right now our asteroid, or my player sprite right here, is in the very center of the screen. So that means if we're 160 left to right, that means it's 80x and 60y. That's the center of our screen right there. But we're going to move that so that it's over here along the left edge of our screen. So to do that, go back to that sprites drawer and get another set my sprite x to position x0, y0. And as it updates, you're going to see our asteroid jump. Well, actually, the ghost jumped to the left corner. So this is what I was talking about. Because of this variable name matches our enemy or our ghost sprite, it moved that ghost sprite even though we had already given it a position. This is the newer block. It's the one read last. So the program's going to respond to this one and override the one we set before. So we're going to do 3 things here. We're going to use this drop down and change this to my sprite 2. So what that's going to do is assign this block to the right sprite, and you can see our ghost goes back to where we want it, and now my asteroid is way over here. So like I said, we don't want the asteroid way off in the middle of nowhere. So we're going to go change its position. So we're going to change that 0 after x to 10. We're just going to move it over back into the screen just a little. And then change the y value to 60. So we're going to be halfway down this left side. And you can see it shows up. It will refresh in a second and it will show up down here. There we go. Sometimes you might have to refresh it yourself. But the asteroid's now right here. Okay, so the last thing we're going to do in our setup block is give us a way to move the player sprite. So go to the controller drawer. It's this red drawer with the control icon next to it. And you're going to grab this Move My Sprite with buttons. And what this block does is it lets you move your sprite, your player sprite, using either these controllers right here, these control buttons, or your arrow keys on your keyboard. So whichever one you want to do, you can. So, oops, we forgot a step here. We need to change that drop down again because that moved my ghost and I don't want that to move the ghost. So make sure you change that drop down to My Sprite 2. And now you can see that the asteroid is the one that moves, and it moves in any direction. We didn't limit it. If you keep moving it like I did, it's going to move off the screen. So we don't want that. But that's easy. You just move in that. If you push it up too far, just pull your cursor back down, and it will come back into the screen. Or refresh, and it will reset. All right, so we have the basics done. Next, we're going to go create a block that updates the game every few seconds. So when we do this, it's automatically resetting the position of the ghost. So we're going to give ourselves so much time to catch the ghost, and if we don't catch it, the ghost is going to move to another spot in the screen. So we're going to go to the game drawer here and get this on game update every 500 milliseconds block and drag it into our workspace. 500 milliseconds is really fast. When you're using milliseconds, the smaller the number, the faster it is. So we're going to make this a little bit more reasonable and click in and type 2000 seconds. So you can see there's some drop down options, but 2000 isn't, and we want to use the 2000 millisecond option. So you're going to have to type that in and just click into the white space when you're done. And next we're going to reset this position. Now we could have it go to the same spot every time. To me, that's pretty boring. So instead we're going to have it randomly move up and down in this spot. So our X value won't change, but we're going to change that Y value each time the game resets. So go to that sprites drawer and get another set My Sprite position to XY. And put it inside our on game update block. And like I said, our X position is going to stay the same, so you're going to just change that 0 after the X to 150. And there's a couple extra steps to do for the pick random, to do a random placement. So we're going to go to the math drawer next and get this pick random 0 to 10 block and drop it in. You can see it has that red circle outlined in yellow. When I bring it up to the circle after that Y, it gives me a connecting line. That means it's safe to release the block and it's going to snap in place. So the only thing we're going to do here is change that 10 to 120. So what this means is our ghost is going to stay in this spot up and down along the 150 axis for X, but it's going to move up and down Y. So it's going to change its Y placement every 2000 seconds. All right. So that's all we're going to do with this block for now. The next thing we're going to do is create the conditions of how we score points and how we win the game. So to do that, go to the sprites drawer, and we're going to scroll down to the overlaps section and get this first block that says on sprite of kind player overlaps other sprite of kind player, and drag that into our workspace. And then the only thing you need to do here is the second player at the end, change that to enemy. So what this is saying is that if you have a sprite that's the type of that we've set to player and it touches our other sprite that's the kind of enemy, we're going to do something with it in here. If you left this as player, your game isn't going to work because we only have one player sprite and it can't overlap or touch itself. So that's why we have to change the drop down. So we're going to make our lives a little easy, and we're going to come back to this block we made in step 9 on the activity sheet. So this block that's inside our on update game, place your cursor over it and right click with your trackpad or mouse to get this pop-up window. If you're using an iPad, you just need to hold down on the block for a few seconds. And once you create that duplicate, you're just going to drag and drop it into our new spot. And we're not going to do anything different. We just are saving ourselves time. So if we catch the ghost, we want it to also regenerate or show up in a new spot. So doing that just makes it easier to reuse code, and again saves us time. So the next thing we're going to do is we also want to reset our sprite position, our player sprite position. So we're going to do that same thing where we come up here to our onStart block, and we're just going to reset our player sprite to the same spot. So come to where it says set my sprite to, position to x10, y60, and then you're going to right click again and hit duplicate and just drag that into your space. Now if you can't get it to duplicate, you have the steps and know where to go get those blocks. So those blocks are both in the my sprite drawer. It's that same block, and then to get the pick random you go to math. But we've already been through that once, so I'm not going to repeat that. You can go rewind the video to watch where to get those, or kind of play around. So the next thing we're going to do is change our score. To do that, we have to go here to the info drawer where there's a card next to it. It looks like a little ID card. And it's right here in this score section. We're going to get change score by 1. You can change, if you want to have this go up by 5 points or 3 points or whatever each time, that's fine. I'm going to leave it set to 1. And then we want to have a condition where we win the game, right? So the game ends at some point, doesn't go on in a forever loop. So we're going to come here to our logic drawer, and we're going to get this if true then block. So this very first conditional block. And so this is going to test if a statement is true or false, depending on how we write our condition. And then either win the game or end the game where we win, or let the game keep playing until we win. So for this, I'm going to have us test our score. So I'm going to give us an arbitrary or random value of 10, and once we hit 10, that's going to end the game. You guys can make that score whatever you want. 10 seems like a good enough number for me. So go back to that logic drawer, and you're going to get under the comparison section, you're going to grab 0 equals 0. And just drag that block, and again snap that inside over the true. So we'll now read if 0 equals 0 then. Change this 0 on the right side of the equal side to 10. And then to test our score, we're going to use a variable block. So this is one that already exists for us. Under the info section, you're going to come here and get this score. This is a variable block that is pre-made with the game. And just snap that inside. So you can see it just refreshed, but there was an error. It was red around that block. That means it was missing something to compare it to. I couldn't compare 0 equals 10 is not a valid comparison because 0 is never going to equal 10. But our score, which is going to change by 1 each time we catch the ghost, is going to eventually equal 10. And the last thing we want to do is add our game over block. So come to this game drawer with the purple circle, and you're going to get this game over lose block. And then to set it to win, just click on lose. So now when we hit this score, we've won the game instead of losing the game. And if you want, you can come over here now and refresh your game if needed and try to play. So you're going to come over here and try to catch the ghost. And right now it's not too bad, right? It's pretty easy. I'm just not coordinated. So you guys can do things like play with those milliseconds for the update game to make it harder. You can also change the ghost reset position so that every time you catch it, it can go anywhere on the screen. So that would be using a pick random block for the X value as well as the Y value. So there's lots of things you can do to make this harder. You can add other things to catch or obstacles in your way. You can also add, we have a condition where we lose. You could also add a condition where we have a condition where we win. You could add a condition for when you get a lose message. So I don't know what that might be. Maybe you give yourself, you can add a counter. We have a counter in here. We have a countdown. So maybe you give yourself 10 seconds to catch something, and if you don't do it in that time frame, you lose. So that's really up to you guys, but there's lots you can do to build on this program. If you are watching this video and didn't make it to the live session, our next one is going to be August 19th at 4 p.m. Central Time. We're going to be learning how to make a 2-player game, so if you're interested and want to do that with us live, you're more than welcome to sign up on our website and join. If not, this video will be available after, so you can just click right here on the website to register for the live lesson. Other than that, that's all I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed this activity.